what we need to do, what would be best, is if she would sit down with me for about an hour on camera, where we could actually have a discussion. Like, I would like to ask her something, for example. I've been trying to puzzle this out. I saw a picture of her today that was a tweet. It was a tweet by one of her friends, and they said that the tweet was something like, "We're amusing ourselves watching the Twitter comments while waiting for the police investigation." Okay, and then there's a picture of Cathy holding a tablet, you know, looking shocked in a very pleased way, I think is the right way of. And you see, that's kind of what I'm worried about, is that she is shocked in a rather pleased way.
Was this the police investigation into the threats to her?
Presumably, it wasn't clear, but presumably. But
I think she removed those tweets.
She did remove them, but it's hard to remove things from Twitter. Yeah. And so, but I've also been sitting here thinking, like, you know, people write me and they say, well, you must be, I'm writing you a letter of support, you must be receiving an overwhelming amount of hate mail, you know, keep up the good work. I don't receive any hate mail. I received like 5 pieces of hate mail in the last 15 months. I can't believe that that's the case.
Very modest number.
Yeah, and they weren't particularly vitriolic. Yeah, they were criticisms, you know. So I don't get hate mail. Now, I don't know why, but I don't. But, you know, if the tables were turned, you know, and if I had done an interview and then 50,000 people had written critical comments about me in 2 days, ranging from like pretty severely critical to pretty damn vitriolic, I would be having a rough time of it, man. I'd be sitting there thinking, Jesus, you know, what the hell did I do? What did I do that was so deeply wrong that this was the result? But I don't know what Cathy's thinking.
That does not seem to constitute her response so far.
Well, you know, I hesitate to guess at it, but there's no evidence that that's her response. You know, she said, oh, well, it was all in good fun. It was part of the game. Thank you for being a good sport. It's not a game for me.
Viva feminism.
Yeah, exactly. Viva feminism. We're really, and I mean, what my impression of the response to her interview is that virtually everyone watching it online, and I'm judging this response by the number of likes to dislikes and the comments, which are running about 80 to 1 against her, which is like 50 to 1 against you is not good. Like 80 to 1 against you is really, really not good. There's something wrong. And so, and these aren't trolls. These aren't my army of trolls. These 3 million people who've watched the video, or it's more than that actually. That's all sorts of people everywhere. And they're not happy with the way the interview went. And that would crush me, you know? And I think that's the right response to that. It's like when you receive overwhelming public criticism like that, the right response should be not glee at stirring up the hornet's nest, but careful reanalysis of what you did.
That's hard.
It's not as hard as the alternative, because if you're riding high and there's a correction coming and you keep forestalling it, the correction will get larger and larger and larger and larger, and finally, when it comes, you will not be able to tolerate it. And that's the situation I believe that she's in. The correction is coming.
Has she responded to your request to sit down again?
No, but it's been made very, very, you know, recently.
Okay.
So I've had a colleague of hers contacted me and said that he would do what he could to put us in touch, and other people have, you know, been working behind the scenes, and I suggested it on Twitter, and, you know, I'm likely going to contact my press agents at Penguin and see if they want to contact her and ask. But because that's the right outcome. The right outcome is we had this bit of combat, let's say. It produced a scandal. Now we actually talk about it. No tricks, just a conversation. And then everybody wins, right? Because I can admit whatever mistakes I made, she can admit whatever mistakes she made, We can drop the persona,
Yeah.
which is what she had. It was an animus-possessed persona, technically speaking. She could drop that. We could actually have a discussion. Like, I would open the discussion by asking her why she was taken aback when I asked her about her treatment of me in the interview. You know, and people have also been spinning that as my claims to have been victimized in the interview. You know, so, which is another sign of how pathological the discourse has become. Because pointing out what's happening and claiming some kind of victim status are by no means the same thing.
So what you're saying, that although it might look as a victory for you, and the attention it has
generated, it's not a healthy victory.
It's not a healthy victory.
Right.
And taking back to that, you said that it's actually a sign of the times where things would go really wrong for all of us really soon.
Yeah, we're playing with fire.
Yeah, what do you mean by this? Can you elaborate?
Well, things go wrong in cultures all the time, right? You get the polarization increases until people start to act it out. You know, I mean, I'll give you an example. You know, I always pay attention to what happens at the back of my mind, to the bottom of my mind, let's say. And what I learned from Carl Jung, for example, one thing was that if you watch what happens in your imagination while you're speaking or while things are happening to you, you'll see little dreamlike fragments happening all the time. They're not in words, they're really more like brief dreams. Jung thought we were dreaming all the time, even when we were awake. And, you know, today I was reviewing maybe 10 or 11 of these newspaper articles that had played this twisty game and accused me of like sicking my internet trolls on the poor hapless journalist. And I thought this was the dark part of me, right? That's the shadow part. Thought if I wanted to sick my internet trolls on Channel 4, then there'd be nothing but broken windows and riots. And then there's a little part of me that thinks, wouldn't that be fun? Right, and that's where we're at. It's like, because I'm a reasonable person, a very reasonable person, even though I can... Oh yes, and I pay attention to them because I know that they're part of the collective unconscious, right? They're the shadow part, and when there's part of me thinking, well, wouldn't that just be perfectly goddamn delightful? Then there's lots of people who are not only thinking that way sometimes, but thinking that way all the time, and they're just waiting for that to be the proper response. You see this with the Antifa violence in the United States, and with the Charlottesville thing as well.
So, but basically what you're saying is that when you have these dark thoughts in your mind, in the back of your mind, you kind of tap into the collective unconscious of the culture you're embedded in.
Definitely. There's no doubt about it, is that like the dark part of me and the dark part of you is the same thing in some ways, you know, and we live in the same culture, so it's going to manifest itself in a similar manner.
Yeah. So you're saying the polarization that we're seeing right now, that we are speaking out, it's not, in the future we will act out that polarization.
Well, if we keep accelerating, and especially if we keep accelerating with lies, you know, and this whole Channel 4 rat's nest is like 90% lies, maybe more. And, you know, a lot of it's ideologically motivated lies, but it doesn't matter. It's still lies. Like Cathy, as I said, there was virtually nothing she said in that interview that was actually coming from her, like a deep part of her, the soul of her. It was all persona. It was all persona, and all use of words in a expedient manner as tools to obtain, I think, probably status, dominant status, and reputation.